Hey friends, it's RSKT, and in today's video I want to show you how I made this album cover for the new Æther Waves Volume 5. Æther Waves is a series of compilation albums that comes out every year featuring music made up from the community using their AE Modular synthesizers, which is why I'm opening with this shot here. I feature the AE Modular synths over on my music channel quite often, and usually this is what a lot of people are seeing, and it's very rare that it pops up on my art channel. This system here is something that I've been putting together over the past year, placing in modules where I see fit and sort of making it into the synthesizer that I want it to be. I think it is a fantastic synthesizer format for making music, and I feel like it is a little bit underappreciated. So I've been making a lot of videos on my music channel showing this thing off. Because of my involvement in the AE Modular community, I was asked if I wanted to create this year's Æther Waves album art and submit a track for it as well. So if you want to know more about the track that I submitted for this, I'll probably be putting up a video on my music channel showing how that was put together. But in today's video, yeah, we're going to be having a look at the album art in question. If you want to know more about Æther Waves, I'll leave a link to the Bandcamp page down below in the description. You should be able to open that up and see all of the other volumes and fantastic arrange of sounds and music and ambient pieces and just really cool stuff made with these synthesizers from the AE Modular community. It's worth noting too that the proceeds for these albums goes towards Musicians Without Borders, which is a fantastic charity, and I urge you to read up more about it. Now for this album cover, I really wanted to involve a lot of these tiny little patch cables that you see that I've got plugged in here and sort of make an object out of it like a hand that you see on the album cover itself. So the start of this tutorial, we're probably going to be taking a look at Blender and how I went about modeling the hand and shaping it to make it look like it was made out of wires before we take it into Affinity Photo to do some color adjustment work and tie it in with a background. If you find this video helpful in any way, please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to get back to you. So without further ado, let's open up Blender and get started. So here we are inside of Blender, and I've dragged and dropped a reference image in here. This is taken from another tutorial on YouTube, and I'll make sure that I leave a link down below in the description because he probably moves at a much slower pace and explains it a lot better than I do. I'm not really the greatest modeler in the world, but I'm just going to give it my best shot so that everything's contained in this video. I'm going to switch to the front view over here, press Shift A and insert a cube. Then we're going to click this button up here, which allows us to get a sort of X-ray view of what we're looking at. We'll make sure that we've got that cube selected, and let's tab into it. Now we're in edit mode. I'm going to press Ctrl R to make a loop cut, and I'm going to do it again on the other side. Then I'm going to make sure that vertice mode is selected, which is this little button up here, or you can press 1 on your keyboard. And we're just going to start moving things around a bit. I'm going to put this top point in between our two middle fingers. Move this one down here. And just kind of line it up to the general shape of the hand. Great. Now let's press Ctrl R again. We'll insert a loop cut here and one here. So if we rotate now, you'll probably notice that the hand is looking pretty big. So we'll just stab out of that and press S and Y to scale in the Y axis, just so that we've got a general hand width to work with. And we'll jump back into front view. Actually, along the top here, we're going to tab into this and press 3 on our keyboard, or this icon up here to switch to face view. Then we'll switch back to front view and press E to extrude. So we're going to go up a ways, scale in just slightly, go up again, and this time we'll scale in slightly, press E once more, and we'll scale out, and then go to the tip of the finger. So something like that. It looks pretty fat and silly right now, but bear with me. I'm going to do this again and again, just for these other ones. And you might need to rotate things as you sort of move through this, just so that you can line it up a little bit better. And don't be afraid to press 1 on your keyboard and just start shifting things around so that everything's lining up nicely. Let's repeat this process 2 more times for the other 2 fingers. And then we'll just do some basic cleanup to get this looking the way we want. Just keep in mind for what we're doing here today, because we don't wind up actually seeing the hand model itself and we're just going to be looking at wires, it doesn't really matter too much about just how accurately you get this to the reference. We just really need a general hand shape for what we're doing. Now for the thumb down here, I'm actually just going to move this point up a little bit, this one in slightly, because this is actually going to act sort of as our thumb knuckle, so to speak. So we'll come in and select this one. Go back to our front view and just sort of work it like that. Cool. So we have our general hand shape at the moment. I'm just going to probably move these in just slightly, like so. And we need a wrist as well. So we'll just select these bottom faces down here. We'll extrude them down slightly and maybe just over a little bit. And then we're just going to press X on our keyboard and press faces to delete the bottom faces. And yeah, there we go. We've basically got our general hand shape going now. So what we can do from here is press Ctrl R on the edge and put one new edge around the entire thing. And then we're going to press A to select everything. And over here, there's a little smooth icon. If we click that, we get this little dongle. And if we pull on this, we can sort of smooth things in and out. So that we're getting more of a sort of organic looking shape now. Now from here, you might want to come in and just add some more topology. So we'll press Ctrl R and just sort of like indent things slightly, just to get that sort of webbing that we get between our fingers. Cool. And then from there, you might want to turn on proportional editing, which is this little icon up the top here, and make sure that connected only is selected. I'm just going to add in another edge loop here as well. And this way, we're able to grab onto things, and when we move them, you'll notice this big circle is in our field of view now, and everything within it is being moved in some way. So we can actually change this circle by using our mouse wheel. So if I do it down here, it's only doing that much. And the reason I'm doing this is just so that we can get a little bit of an indent for the palm. And you might want to do that on the reverse side as well. Cool, that's looking good, except for the fact that the fingers are pretty fat. So I'm just going to turn off proportional editing and just scale some of these in a little bit and move them up slightly, just so that we're not losing the length, but we are sort of losing some of that width. Really, it's kind of entirely up to you how you want your hand to look at this point. There's no real right or wrong way to go about it. It's just, making it look like a hand, really. And I just like to turn on proportional editing one more time and just sort of indent the top of the fingers slightly. We'll turn this off so that we can actually see what we're doing. And there we go. That's pretty much what I did to sort of get this hand model looking the way that I needed it to. If we jump out of this view and turn on Shade Smooth, we've essentially got a nice little hand model to work with. We can also go in and use like a subdivision surface modifier, just to sort of divide that up even further. And for general purposes, this is all we need to get going and start making our sort of wire mesh. If you're still finding things are looking janky as well, maybe pay better attention. I'm kind of rushing through this, but that wrist is looking kind of weird and janky. Maybe something like that. So in order to do the wires, I experimented with a few different methods, and they all either took too long, weren't flexible enough, or they just sort of didn't look right. So I actually watched another tutorial, which I'll make sure that I leave a link to that down below in the description as well. Essentially, the best method I found was to go to Preferences, and then just here, you can use the search bar up here, but add curve extra objects. You want to enable that. So with our object selected, I'm going to press Shift A and go down to knots, which is a new option we've got after enabling the thing before. And if we click on bounce spline, we get this, which is a really cool result. Now don't click off just yet. We want to click on this little arrow down here, and now we've got a lot of new options. I didn't really have a game plan going into this, and I just kind of experimented with a few different things. So you might want to increase the radius slightly. We can maybe just make this 0.1, something like that. And then you can offset this as well, just so that it's sticking out of your mesh a little bit, but that's entirely up to you. And then the other interesting part about this is we've got a random seed option. So if we click this, we actually get like a lot of different results. So I'm going to leave it on the first one here, click off, and then we're going to select the object again and repeat this process. I'm going to choose a different seed, maybe something like that, and then repeat again and again and again until pretty much the entire mesh is covered. Now, I'm not going to go through like that whole length of things because it just takes like a little bit long, but I think I wound up with about 10 or so different layers of these, and you can select between them over here. So what I did from there is I just went to the material tab, which is down here, created a new material, and then you can change the color to whatever you want. Just going to turn on this view so we can see what we're doing. Play around with whether you want them to be sort of shiny or not. So you can play around with that with the roughness, but that's entirely up to you. I'm pretty sure I just left a lot of my stuff at default. And then we'll just select another one, make a new material, choose a different color, and pretty much rinse and repeat. Now, if we go up to our hand and we hide this layer, we have something like this. So yeah, I mean, this is really, really cool. Now we can get our light and sort of move it closer. I'm pretty sure I used 2 different light sources, something like so. I just move this one along the y-axis a little bit. Something like that. And you might want to make these just slightly different colors. I might like making one slightly cool and then the other one slightly warm. You know, again, this is like a pretty rough sort of looking thing, but we're pretty much off to the races at this point. So one last thing I did here is I went into render settings. I turned on ambient occlusion and bloom as well. And you know, ambient occlusion just sort of makes little contact shadows wherever things are connected. And bloom, if I move this closer, you see now we've got this sort of glowing effect happening where the light is hitting our object. So that's what bloom does. I don't like it being too strong, but it can be really sort of useful for getting like cool and slightly realistic techniques, even though it isn't very realistic. And yeah, once I was sort of happy with that, I lined it up with the camera angle that I actually wanted, hit render, and rendered out an image. The only other setting that you might want to worry about is if we go to the film tab here in the render settings, we can switch this to transparent, which means that when we import this into Affinity Designer, we've got a transparent image to work with, and we're just getting that lighting information and the hand itself. So now that the basic Blender tutorial things are out of the way, I just want to show you a couple of other things that I did with the hand here. So I curved mine slightly just to get like a little bit of a better pose. I used some of the proportional editing techniques just to shift some of the wires around a little bit more to make it just slightly more chaotic. From this point, I wasn't really sure what other direction I wanted to go in. At first, I thought it would be cool to have some modules from the AE Modular system embedded in some of the cables, almost like some sort of modular monster, but I didn't wind up using that for the final result. Here you can see I'm just sort of experimenting, and I didn't go through great lengths to model these just in case it wasn't something that I wanted to go with. And yeah, thank God I didn't spend the time because I didn't wind up using it at all. Next up, I brought them into Affinity Photo over here, and I just started to play around with some grungy backgrounds. At this stage, I still didn't really have a clear idea of how I actually wanted to present the hand in this image. I just sort of shoved it in the bottom corner and played around with some different grunge effects. I was listening to a lot of Nine Inch Nails lately, and I really love the album covers that he uses for a lot of his work. So yeah, I was sort of going for something in that regards, like that sort of real grungy, rusty sort of background. I played around with like a lot of different color correction techniques and whatnot, just to sort of see if I could blend the color of the cables in with whatever background I chose. But ultimately, I still wasn't really happy with a lot of the look of it, so I wound up removing the modules. Something else that I experimented with was sort of bringing in like electrical sort of currents and whatnot flying around. And while it was like a cool idea in my head, in execution, it looks like some sort of terrible 90s poster. And yeah, I just wasn't really sold on this either. Finally, I decided to take out the modules from the hand because they just really weren't working, and decided to start from scratch all over again. This time I brought in a much more subtle, grungy background, and originally I thought I would go with a black and white sort of theme. So you can see me experimenting with that here. Now, a couple of other things that I like to do during this process is to add things like a little bit of noise just to help blend the rendered image and the photo image in the background in a little bit better. And then I use the tone mapping persona, and there's a really high contrast black and white preset in there that I like to use. And then I kind of just play around with different overlay effects in getting that, just to sort of up the contrast a bit, but also add a lot of detail that really wasn't visible before. Finally, I stuck the logo and text down the bottom left corner. I played around with doing some drop shadow stuff, but I really wasn't liking it so far. So I kept experimenting until I got the black and white version you see here. Now, even though I liked the black and white version, it still looked a little too black and white. So I played around with a gradient and just overlaid it on top, just to sort of make the bottom left corner look a little sort of greeny blue, and the top right corner to be a washed out sort of white, just to give a little bit more variation in like the highlights and the shadows of the image. So at this point, I was pretty happy with this design, so I sent it in for revision. And some of the feedback that I got was that the fingers looked a little bit stumpy. And, you know, that can definitely happen when you're looking at a piece of art for too long. You tend to not notice a lot of the little critical details and mistakes that you're working with. So I went back into Blender and used some of the proportional editing tools just to sort of stretch out the fingers a little further and make it look a little less stumpy. Brought it back in and sort of did all of the color correction techniques again. At this point, I was really happy with how everything had come together. I sent it in for revision one more time, and the only bit of feedback I got was that they seemed to like the hand as a color version a little bit more. So I just re-rendered out the color version, repeated the entire color correction process, but instead of making the hand black and white, I left it as color, and that is the end result of what you see here. Anyways, I hope that you found this video useful and can incorporate it into your own workflow in some way. I definitely had a lot of fun doing this, and I'm honored that my artwork is now featured as like part of the sort of AE Modular story that's going on. Hit the like if you like, and if you don't, tell me why. Please subscribe, check me out on Patreon, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.